Global periods, surgical packages, what's it all about? Well, today I'm going to tell you all about these concepts and the resources that you need to know about. Hey there, everyone. I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. And on my channel, I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. If you haven't already, highly encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get alerts when I post new episodes. Global periods. First, let's talk about the Medicare global periods. What are they? In simplest terms, the global period is the time frame in which all of the services surrounding a surgery or procedure are considered included in that procedure and are not separately billable. Unbundling is when we are trying to bill separately for something that's included in a procedure. So if you think about something like purchasing a cake, when you buy a cake, what's included in that cake? It's included the eggs, the flour, the time to bake it, the frosting, everything is included. So you wouldn't bill out for like a cake and then also a can of frosting, or bill out for a cake but then also a separate fee to bake the cake, unless there's maybe some exceptions, which we also see in billing and coding, and we'll talk about. But first, let's break down the different types of global periods that we have. So first, we have the 0-day global periods, where it's just that procedure on that day, and there's no pre-op or post-operative care. So if you think about something like you're going to the office to get an injection, you're not going to go and have a decision to have that ahead of time that you're going to get billed for separately as part of that. There's going to be no post-operative care. It's just going to be that code for that injection, and you're not going to have to come back later on. Then we have our 10-day surgeries. So that might be something like a lesion removal or a minor procedure where you have to come and get stitches removed within the next 10 days, or have a cast change or a wound check or something in the next 10 days. And that visit that you have, like let's say a week later, is included in that procedure. It doesn't get billed out separately because it's understood it's part of that procedure. It's an integral component that if you're going to put in sutures, that they have to get removed. The 0 and 10-day procedures are considered minor surgeries. Major surgeries are our 90-day global periods. So that's the services that are done on the date of the surgery, and then 90 days post-operatively are included. So during that global period, what all is included? Well, what's included is that decision for surgery. So we're looking at the patient, we're going, yep, we're going to proceed with the procedure. The intraoperative services, which is the surgery itself, post-op visits that are related to the recovery of that, pain management for the recovery of that procedure, and actually even complications, with the exception of if they require a return to the operating room. So if the patient has to maybe go back to the operating room for an evacuation of a hematoma, that can be billed out separately in some circumstances. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rules, just even going back to like our cake analogy. So if you buy a cake from the grocery store and you put it on the conveyor belt, you can technically buy a cake and then also buy an additional can of frosting. That's not usually what happens. That's kind of the exception to the rule. So that happens in billing and coding as well. So you might have a major surgery and within those 90 days have something that's totally unrelated to it. And just because you had that one major surgery and everything that's routine included in that shouldn't be billed out separately doesn't mean that something totally unrelated shouldn't be billed. And what we do in these scenarios is we have certain modifiers to indicate, hey, we know that this patient had a major surgery and all of the stuff that's included in that surgery, we're not supposed to bill out separately, but this was an exception. This is something not related to that. So we have modifiers for these scenarios. So modifier 24, for example, is for an unrelated evaluation and management service by the same physician during that global period. And then modifier 79 is for an unrelated procedure during that global period, again, same physician. So for example, let's say a patient has a lumpectomy of their breast, and in that 90 days, all of that routine care related to that breast procedure is included in billing that breast procedure. But let's say maybe they have a hernia during that time. So the general surgeon that did that lumpectomy is also going to evaluate them for a hernia and remove that hernia. So we're going to bill that hernia surgery with that 79 modifier saying, hey, this is totally separate. This is a whole different global surgical package thing separate from this other procedure that we did. Or let's say patient has carpal tunnel surgery on their right wrist. And then during their surgical package, they also start having pain in in their left wrist. So they go to their doctor to get evaluated for the left wrist and see what's going on there. That evaluation and management service is going to get billed out with the E&M code and the 24 modifier to indicate that it was a separate E&M service by the same physician. Totally different anatomical location though, right? So it's not included. So let's go through a couple more scenarios. So let's say a patient has a minor surgical procedure with a 10-day follow-up period, and on day 7 they come in for routine post-operative care. That's not going to be billed out separate. If it's related to that minor surgery they had prior and they're in that 10-day period, it should not be billed out separate. Now, some insurances do want you to track them, so check out your local insurance policies, especially with Medicare, if they want you to bill out like a 99024 or some kind of tracking code in order to get that data of how many post-op visits a patient is having. Second scenario, let's say a patient has a major 90-day surgery and on day 30 they have to have some unrelated procedure. That unrelated procedure we're going to bill out with a different diagnosis code, but that alone isn't going to trigger to the insurance, hey, don't forget we could get paid out separately for that, because they're not looking at every single claim. They're just programming all kinds of edits in the system that go beep, bop, boop, 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 you know, and approve or deny. And there's only certain things that they will actually sit down and look at, because it's a huge freaking volume of healthcare claims. So what we're going to do is put on that 79 modifier, and that 79 modifier is going to trigger to them, hey, this procedure that we're having today is not related to that other major surgery that we had. And we know that there's a 90-day global period and all that, but this was separate. And there are situations where the global package has to get broken up though. So let's say, for example, a provider does intraoperative care and then they go on sabbatical and someone else has to do the post-operative care. We have modifiers to break up the surgical package as well. Modifier 55 is for that post-operative care only, and then modifier 56 is for pre-operative care only. If you're billing for one of these scenarios, definitely look at the regulations, because there has to be certain requirements met, like there has to be a transfer of care. So let's say a provider does surgery on a patient and they do the pre and intraoperative care and someone else does post-operative care. Those providers are both going to bill their services with the same surgical code on the same date, but they're going to use the different modifiers to split them up. So one provider will get paid a component for the parts that they did, and another provider will get paid for the components that they did. Understanding the Medicare global periods is really crucial for medical coding, but also for billing and making sure that we're getting reimbursed appropriately. Make sure to familiarize yourself with the different regulations and the different guidelines, and check for regional differences, because your region may have different philosophies than other Medicare contractor regions. I'm going to link below though some of these CMS references that we have specific to global periods. If you have any questions on surgical packages, definitely let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.